Mhm.
But Jay, thank you for joining the show. How are you? How are your family doing? And I had the opportunity to have your son on the show, so I feel like this is a family affair. So
That's right. That's right.
Full circle.
We are doing well. You know, these last 2 weeks have been really fun. I mean, anytime the football season's starting, I love football. I get so jacked up and excited for the college season, the NFL season. But this year was really special for us because, my son had transferred to Colorado. He's trying to win the starting job. They're opening at TCU. So there's so much buildup to that game. It's his first real opportunity. So we flew down there. I went to the game with some family who are all TCU fans, and then my dad and my mom came out, and we were able to go to the game and watch and see that historic win for Colorado. Really, the announcement of the Colorado Buffalo saying, "Hey, we're for real in the United States." Like, people didn't know. I watched their practice a lot in spring ball, and I watched a lot of their practices in fall, and I knew how good they were, but I don't think.
But for you, like I said, we had your son on the show. But I want to ask you, when you were in Arizona, there's a picture of you holding him as a young kid, and talk about that moment in your career and seeing him come full circle as a kicker also. And who ever thought he would be this kicker? But talk about that moment. How special is that for both of you?
Well, that was 2010. It was after the game where against the Broncos, where I scored the first 21 points because I scored a touchdown. I kicked 5 field goals, kicked the extra points, and no one else had scored. And so, ironically, CBS, who I've worked for now since I ended my career, put up a graphic like Jace Feely 21, Broncos, whatever it was, 13 or something like that. And so it was just one of those games where everything went right, and crazy game. And I just happened to see him as I was going into the locker room after the game. And I just on a whim said, "Hey, come down." My season with Rex Ryan in 2009 was one of my favorite years. And because Rex is crazy, and it was fun to come to work every day because you never knew what he was going to do. And he was always going to do something crazy. And I could write a whole book based on all the things that went on, in that season. But I really enjoyed it. I mean, he wanted us to have fun. He wanted to, we were a good team. Obviously, went to the AFC Championship with Mark Sanchez as a rookie, as the quarterback. And we just had a great locker room. And I think, if I look back on that Jets team and you say, okay, well, what happened? They go to 2 AFC championships. I think the biggest thing was they didn't do a great job of kind of recognizing what Rex did well and what he didn't do well. And I think as a GM, that's your job. You have to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are, your players are, but also your coaches. And, Rex wanted, I was his make it right guy when I was with the Jets. And he told me that.
So glad you said that, because one of the things that I've been thinking about is all eyes on you, and you have it in college, but then you get to the professional level, all eyes are on you. It's a lot of stress. How do you get into focus? Were you ever able to completely tune everybody all out? And do you use a certain process now currently still?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because kickers, closers, those positions, penalty kicks in soccer, when free throws at the end of a game in basketball, those are the moments that are similar to kicking. And, you have to go up there and you have to perform when everyone's watching you and everyone else is kind of stopped and standing still. And the pressure builds and it mounts, and that the game's on the line, but you can't allow your mind to wander to think about that. And so for me, at the beginning of my career, I spent a weekend with a guy named Bob Rotella, who's a sports psychologist.
Yeah, thank you for being on the show, Jay. I have not interviewed your son, so unlike everyone else. But, no, for me, my question was kind of, what would you say is the hardest place or the hardest stadium to kind of kick in? I mean, I know weather factors into it, but me being a Packers fan, I've watched Mason Crosby kick for them until this year. And I know I've heard interviews with him saying when it gets cold there, it's a tough place. But yeah, you personally, what's the hardest place that you've kicked a field goal in?
All of your cold weather grass stadiums, right? So you got Green Bay, obviously, is one of them. Cleveland, Pittsburgh's really tough. Philly can be tough. Those cold weather. Chicago's awful at the end of the season because the grass stops growing. So then you got kind of dirt fields, and Green Bay, actually, of all the places, does a pretty good job because that field is heated. And so they do a pretty good job of keeping that grass. And most of those places I played in the playoffs too. So, it's just kind of nasty there when you get into December, late in the season. you're windy,